Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television. As I said, today our conversation is going to be on the aviation sector, and I'm being joined by the Director, Commercial and Business Development of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, Adeni Balogun. Thank you so much, Adeni, for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
And joining us from our Abuja studio is Bala Nala. Bala is a pilot. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with you, Adeni. The aviation sector in Nigeria is going through a major phase of re-evaluation and reform. How much success has FAN recorded in attracting new private investors in the area of airport development?
To appreciate the state in which we are presently, we need to look back and look at the numbers that we met when we came on board. Late 2011, when the present team aviation came on board, the contribution of aviation to the GDP was in the region of 109 billion naira, which translates to about 0.4% in the GDP. And then you have the gross value addition, which is the average per worker, at about 3,500,000 naira per person. Aviation sector was supporting about 59,000 employees, or creating jobs of 59,000 as at late 2011. Going forward, we came on board and we said this is not acceptable. So what is acceptable is to create a new business model. That new business model is underlined by the need for us to run the aviation sector efficiently and ensure that they are self-sustaining, all the parastatals within the aviation sector. And so going forward, with that in mind, we developed the master plan. We had specific action plan for each of the parastatals, and that's how we are running. And so for me, on commercial and business desk, what we are trying to do is to increase or improve on our revenue generation and collection. As at late 2011, we were able to make about 28 billion throughout the 2011, and then in 2012, it rose to about 30 billion. As at last year, that's December, we are yet to collect the final figure, but we are looking at about 44 billion.
Okay, now
that's been an upward increase in it.
Okay, so now with this seems to be very impressive numbers here, really now. But how much, collaboration was there with private investors who were actually interested in all this ongoing development right now at the airports?
What we've been doing the last 1.5, 2 years is to bring about a platform whereby the public sector and the private sector are intertwined in developing the aviation sector. And so to do that, we are upscaling our airport city development, which we call the Aerotropolis. The Aerotropolis simply means bridging the gap between the city and the airport environment. And that means bringing on board a number of business concerns, shopping malls, multi-story car parks, hospitality in terms of hotels, in terms of leisure centers, convention centers, training grounds, for aviation personnel and the rest of them. And so, with that in mind, we felt that there will be a huge increase in numbers in terms of passenger traffic, in terms of aircraft traffic. And so that's why we are trying to modernize all the terminal buildings. And to start with that, we took on board 11 airports, and then again for the first phase, and in the second phase, we are now handling the second phase, which also comprise 11 airports.
Okay, so could you just quickly bring us up to speed with the level of works that are ongoing and what FAN ultimately hopes to achieve in the long run?
At the end of the day, we are trying to do, if I may just use the Murtala Mohammed International Airport as a test case, is to expand both wings of the airport. We have the D wing, we have the E wing. As we speak now, in fact, as at 24th December, when we opened the two wings, we have created a very very, very large space that you now have from before we had there were 10 immigration desks. Now we have 40 on each of the two wings, and then the capacity of the terminal building to handle passengers has also improved, and with that we expect that there will be a lot of commercial offerings in terms of retail outlets, duty free, a number of shops and commercial provisioning at the terminal buildings.
Well, I think there's been some argument and debate that FAN is more interested in collecting money than in providing a good ambience at the airport and improve on travel experience. But we'll come back to that. We still have our guest in Abuja, in our Abuja studio. So, Bala, if you can hear me, I'm sure you've listened to most of what Adeni has said, but we know that air safety is a major concern. As someone who is in the front line, how would you rate the safety measures and procedures put in place by the authorities, and which specific areas would you like to see improved on?
Well, thank you very much for joining us here in Abuja to say what we feel about what is going on in the industry. Fundamentally, we must admit that let's say in the last 2 years or 3 years of our aviation developments, there has been a renewed desire to upgrade our facilities all over the country. But you see,
we seem to have lost signal there with our studios in Abuja, but as soon as we get the connection, we will go back to Bala to continue that conversation. But Adeni is still here with me. As I said, he's the Director, Commercial and Business Development of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. Now, just before I went to Abuja to speak with Bala and we lost signal there, I mentioned that a lot of passengers are concerned that FAN seems to be more interested in revenue generation instead of improving travel experience and airport ambience. So do you agree, or what's your view on this?
I don't agree with that, because our main objective is to improve the ambience of the airports, is to make all the airports a delightful experience to all users of the airports. And in doing that, that's why we undertook the remodeling of the airports, terminal buildings. And we are not just leaving it at Lagos or the international airports alone. We are covering all the 22 airports all over the country. And as you can see, as of today, we have done it in Lagos, Murtala Mohammed. We have done it in Abuja. We have the GAT terminal building. We have opened Enugu. We have opened Owerri. We have opened partly Port Harcourt, and quite a number of other places are online. And very shortly, those ones will be completed, and then the passengers will start having a fresh experience, a delightful experience, in terms of service provisioning.
When you say service provisioning, in terms of more private collaboration with the government, or what are your great projections for the future on completion of these upgrades?
When we complete the terminal buildings and the upgrades, we expect that every airport will be self-sustaining. That means freeing the federal government the burden of having to provide the finances for running the airports, which is the status in which we are presently. Yeah. So that's the first goal. The second goal is to bring a delightful experience to all passengers, and all the users of the airports. Then the number 3 is to ensure that we have a sustainable flow of income in terms of revenue, to keep us online, so that as we go forward, we will not have any cost to go back to the federal government, for any form of subsidy.
Okay. Well, Bala seems to be back online now in our Abuja studios. Thank you so much, Bala, for joining us. And just before we lost you there, we're talking about your take your thoughts on safety measures and procedures put in place by the authorities, and which specific areas would you like to see improved on?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, we have to commend the efforts of the federal government on its focus on developing the industry and what has been put so far in the industry. But again, you see, we have a different perspective, and therefore, when we talk of aviation development, we need to understand the fact that it's such a huge industry and inherently complex. And therefore, in fashioning out the developments that cannot be taken wholesome, you need to constantly engage the stakeholders so that we carry this in such a way that it will be seamlessly done and then arrive at a very acceptable situation. The areas that pilots will continue to complain about will be, for example, we find it weird. We find it, something we cannot explain, that you spend a large amount of money in building terminals, making sure that we upgrade our terminal buildings, and then neglecting to some level, I can say, what we require in the various airports we are developing. For example, a pilot will prefer that he has a properly marked runway, a properly lighted runway, a properly calibrated runway with runway visual reference all established for him to ensure that he carries out his duties of ensuring that he transports his passengers from point A to B safely. Because like we have always said, safety is a fundamental issue in the aviation industry. So while we commend those efforts, we are saying that, look, why will the issue of arriving passengers to their destination not a priority, but where they stay becomes a priority? So our priority should have been to be sure that there are a lot of improvements on the runway itself. The general say in the aviation sector is that it should matter to us where our passengers land. So that's a priority, and we hope that maybe in the next phase, those charged with the responsibility of doing this will look at that sector, that aspect, critically.